Happy Tuesday, everyone, and welcome to Inside the Newsroom. I'm Maddie Paul. Inside the Newsroom, we bring you the trending stories of the Kelloland area, and the best part of all, we bring in our newsroom staff members to talk about these trending stories. So you get a behind-the-scenes look at how our reporters or producers or even our meteorologists put stories together every day that you see on our newscast and Kelloland.com. To start off today with Inside the Newsroom, authorities are investigating a boat explosion on Sheridan Lake. Luckily, no one was hurt, but Jordan DeSmit got to talk with first responders who saw that boat explosion.
As a black plume of smoke rose into the air on Sheridan Lake, it looked like something out of a movie.
This is unlike anything I've ever witnessed on the water. Probably the wildest thing that I've seen on boat patrol in the last 8-9 years.
I've seen boats catch on fire before, but nothing quite like this.
Chief Jeremy Dahlman of the Hill City Volunteer Fire Department says when crews arrived, the boat was drifting away from the dock.
Pennington County Sheriff's Office was out there with their patrol boat. They came over and picked up one of our officers and two of our firefighters, took them out to the boat.
Then the boat was towed back toward the dock where firefighters were waiting with hoses.
All the right pieces were there at the right time, and it just worked out.
The cause of the explosion is still under investigation, but at this point, authorities say it may have been caused by a mechanical issue. However, Scott Crawford of I-29 RV, Marine, and Outdoor says there are some steps you can take to reduce the chance of this happening to you.
On an inboard, most the time you should do is it's got a bilge fan that you can flip the switch on, and you want to run that for a couple minutes before you even turn the key on. And that will siphon all those gas fumes out of there and allow you to start the engine up.
And luckily, no one was hurt. And Jordan DeSmit joins me now at the digital desk to talk more about this story. Jordan, one thing I've noticed is you barely talked in the video that you created explaining what the first responders saw. So why did you let them do most of the talking?
I would say because they know what happened, right? And this is their story. I want to make sure that they get to tell it, right? And I think that's something that was interesting about this story is there's not a lot of times when you interview first responders or officials like that where you can get a lot of emotion out of them. And I feel like with these two, I got some of that emotion, especially at the beginning there where they said this is unlike something I've ever seen. So I needed to make sure that they told the story because it's their story.
You're right. They both said that this was such a unique situation, very unique to them. And then we were able to use their unique photos that they took. How did you want to use these photos to enhance the experience that the first responders were recounting when they were talking to you?
I mean, I remember I was here actually at the station Sunday when it happened. I work every Sunday. And so when we saw these pictures come through, I think all of us here at the station were like, oh my goodness, this is pretty crazy, right? So that was another key piece of making sure that it was a visual that helps us tell the story, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it was really important to make sure that people saw exactly what happened.
Exactly. And, you know, the ending of your story gave some boat safety tips. You were able to talk to a Marine tech, Scott Crawford. And was there anything else that you learned from him that kind of stood out to you?
I would say something that I didn't include in my story. This boat right here that you see, it was an inboard engine, meaning the engine's like kind of inside the boat, where a lot of the boats that they sell at I-29 are outboard, meaning I think it's probably the boat that you probably think about where the engine is visible outside of it. And so because this was an inboard and you need to turn on a fan that kind of runs and kind of cools things down, I would say, you don't necessarily have to worry about that on an outboard, right? So I think that's something that it was getting in the weeds a little bit, so I didn't include it in my story, but I thought that was interesting because that's not really something I knew about boats, so I learned something new.
Yep, and the case is still under investigation. As you said in your story, luckily nobody was hurt. But is there any updates that we know at this point today?
And not at this point. Again, I was told yesterday that they believe it was a mechanical issue, but they're not 100% sure on that.
And then what are you working on today?
Today, I went to the Minnehaha County Commission meeting where we talked about an opt-out of property taxes. So I get to go through a lot of footage for that meeting and bring you a report tonight.
Thank you, Jordan, and thank you for joining me here at the Digital Desk. And stick around, viewers, because up next on Inside the Newsroom, we are looking at an Eye on Kelloland story. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Inside the Newsroom. Joining me now is our reporter and anchor, Kelly Vogt, to talk about Eye on KELOLAND stories and one that she did for Monday. So, Kelly, to start, to just give a little bit of context, how would you describe the difference between an Eye on KELOLAND story versus the stories that we see every day on our newscasts?
Well, the first major difference is the length of the story. You know, a story you see in our daily newscast is probably about a minute 20, a minute 30. An Eye on KELOLAND is usually about 3 minutes or more or a little less. And the reason that we have these longer stories is it gives us a chance to go more in depth on something. Maybe if it's a story that has a few more layers to it, you have the time to unpack those different layers.
And I think that is a great example, you talking about these layers. That is seen in the story that you created for Monday, talking about more space needed for Owens Outfitters. Can you tell me a little bit about who owns Owens Outfitters and why they do it?
So Owens Outfitters is a nonprofit program. The people who are leading it are the late Owens' parents, Mike Turner and Elena Turner, along with one of Owens' pediatricians. So they started it, and they lead the organization. And it was started because Mike and Elena's son, Owen, died at the age of 12. He had different medical complications throughout his life, and he passed away. And they wanted to start something that would honor him, but also help other families in need of medical equipment.
And they give out the medical equipment for free. But one exciting piece that you got to uncover in this story, because it's long form, is they're moving to a new space. Can you tell me where they operated first and why they need to move to something bigger?
Well, this first started in the Turner's home. So small beginnings. They moved to an office space in the nonprofit center that is across from the Premier Center in Sioux Falls. And now, because they have so much volume of a medical equipment, we're talking about hospital beds, wheelchairs, walkers, pretty much anything you can imagine. They're helping more people. They have more donations coming in. They just need more space. So they're moving to a warehouse that is about a mile away, and it's more than 10 times the space of their current location.
Wow. So they've just been seeing a need grow for having more space, or have they just been getting more equipment? What were they telling you?
Well, I think it's a mixture of a few different things. You know, their name is getting out more. They've been doing this for over 2 years, so more and more people are starting to find out what they're doing. So they're getting more donations from, hospice settings and nursing homes, and they need more space to house all this stuff. And with that increased space, it's going to help them serve families better. It's just going to be a less cluttered, more organized space for families to come and get what they need.
It sounds like something that these families need, something that these owners need. And, circling back to what we talked about at the beginning with like the time and the layers that go into Eye on KELOLAND stories, I think this story that you did is a perfect example of the many different layers that you can uncover within a story, because they're talking about the need. They're talking about a very personal connection to why they started this nonprofit and then the expansion.
Right.
So for you, what do you want with all these layers? What do you want viewers to recognize the most with this story?
Well, you always want to let people know why this matters. Well, it matters because there are families and individuals who need medical equipment, and maybe they can't access it for some reason. Maybe they have insurance, but it doesn't cover it. Maybe they don't have insurance. Maybe there's, a wait list and they need something right now. There are many different reasons why someone might need this program, but it's important to know that the need is there and that an organization is fulfilling that need.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah.
And what story are you working on for today?
Well, I was out at McCrossin Boys Ranch today, and the organization is marking 70 years. It first started in 1955. It's grown a lot since then. It's helping a lot more boys now than when it first started. So we're going to look back at the history.
Awesome. Kelly, can't wait to see that tonight on our evening newscast. And viewers, stick around for Inside the Newsroom, because up next, we're talking about preserving Captain 11 history, not only at the station, but now in Pierre. Stick around for Inside the Newsroom. Welcome back to Inside the Newsroom. Captain 11 suit has been home to our downtown Sioux Falls station since May of 2023, but now it's back in Pierre. Tom Hansen reports.
It seems like a lot of fuss for a piece of clothing, but Captain 11 is an iconic part of Keloland's history.
How's my crew today?
Dave Dedrick played the part for more than 40 years on TV. Kids and their parents would travel from all over the region to attend the afternoon cartoon show in the Keloland studio. To celebrate the 70th anniversary as a TV station, Keloland decided to bring back the blue uniform with yellow piping. Dedrick wore this suit during the early 1980s. The uniform has been on display in Keloland's lobby for the past 25 months. Keloland donated the suit to the Historical Society, and now it's being carefully packed up and is going back to Pierre. Since prolonged exposure to light can eventually break down the fabric, it will likely be placed in storage for several years.
It's the responsibility of the State Historical Society to take things off exhibit for a time and let it rest in the dark so that in 500 years, people can still see Captain.
Keloland Director of Marketing and Creative Services Paul Farmer worked with Dave Dedrick and says he would be proud that we are remembering Captain 11's legacy.
He always talked about when he'd have 3 generations in his audience there, that was a great thrill for him. So I think the captain would be truly honored that we've brought back the uniform here for a couple of years, and now it's going back to the museum in Pierre for everyone to enjoy for years and years.
The Captain 11 show first aired on March 7th, 1955.
A piece of history that's now in Pierre. Tom Hansen joining us now at the digital desk to talk about this legacy, Tom. I have to ask right away. I loved having the Captain 11 gear up in the lobby. So what did you love about having the Captain 11 gear here in the station?
Well, just the history. You know, I mean, I'm of that generation where I used to run home from school just to watch the cartoons and watch Captain 11. I unfortunately never got a chance to go to Sioux Falls and go to the studio and see that stuff. But I had friends who did, and they were always so excited. And in the toy chest, there was the giant Tootsie Roll. That's what I remember. You know, if you got picked and your key opened the toy chest, then you got the giant Tootsie Roll. So it was just a fun show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you preserved it through this story. So what do you believe is the most important theme of the story that you created that you want viewers to take away?
You know, Daniel Mockley from the South Dakota Historical Society he's just a cool guy, and he knows his stuff. And I said, okay, what's the big deal about, lending it out to us and, having it at the Historical Society? And he talked about how photons are right now, they're hitting us, and they hit that fabric, and they just sit there and bombard that fabric. And over time, it fades it.
Is that the sun? The sunlight?
Even light from light bulbs will do it. But the sunlight is broad spectrum. So, yeah, it has a lot more of the damaging light. So they really want to keep it away from sunlight. Mm-hmm. But any light can damage it over time. And we looked at the suit, and Danny was showing me, there are seams where you can, kind of open up where the sun or the light never hits it. And it's a little darker blue. In some of those areas. So you can tell that the suit has faded. It's from the 1980s. So they're going to take it back to Pierre, and they're going to put it in a dark room. They're going to pack it up and put it in a dark room, and it's probably going to be there for a few years. And then they'll bring it out when it feels special again, I think.
Yeah, because we want to preserve it, obviously. That's the whole point of it, going back to the Historical Society. Mm-hmm. And, you're talking about this interesting bit that they told you. Was there anything else that stood out by the creator of exhibits that you spoke to that just stood out or you were like, oh,
I thought this is kind of an interesting tidbit. And I guess I like those little tidbits, but he says, some people use gloves, when they handle special things like this.
Oh, yeah.
And there are two thoughts. One is, yes, you wear gloves so that the oils from your hands, don't get on the item. But the other thought is, you don't have the dexterity if you're wearing gloves, and you could you more easily rip something or drop something if you're wearing the gloves. So in the world of museums, there are two schools of thought. Who knew about this museum controversy, right?
I didn't know. Wow. What was it like when you saw that gear being taken down?
It was kind of sad in a way. We've grown accustomed to it. It was supposedly going to be here. Well, it was supposed to be here for a year. Mm-hmm. And then they're remodeling the Historical Society in Pierre. So it was a great place to store it here while they're going through that. So they let us have it for another year. And Jody Staples, he arranges all that. He's our guru behind the scenes that nobody ever gets to see. But Jody's awesome, and he took care of all that kind of stuff.
And, even though the Captain 11 gear is leaving, speaking of Jody, he created like a gorgeous, what do they call it, collages over the years in our lobby now. So at least we have something to preserve all of that history for us.
Absolutely.
Tom, what story are you working on today?
Today we're going to go to Hungry Hearts, and they have an annual fundraiser where they help feed kids who can't afford those school lunches. So that's what we'll be working on today.
And you can catch it tonight. Thank you, Tom, for joining me here at the Digital Desk. And stick around, viewers, because up next, we're talking about a severe weather recap with one of our meteorologists. Don't go anywhere. Inside the Newsroom, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Inside the Newsroom. Meteorologist Scott Munt has a look at where South Dakota stands for severe weather just this year.
It's mid-July, and we're halfway through the meteorological summer, but severe weather season stretches beyond the end of August. Here's a look at where we stand when it comes to severe weather reports. I went back to the archives since 2000 for South Dakota's tornado, severe wind, and severe hail reports. Since 2000, South Dakota averages 26 tornado reports, 362 severe wind reports of 57 miles per hour and greater, and 355 severe hail reports, 1-inch diameter and larger. Through Saturday of this year, South Dakota is sitting at 9 tornado reports, 249 severe wind reports, and 119 severe hail reports. The difference from this year so far and the average show 17 less for tornadoes, 113 less for wind, and 263 less for hail. Thanks to our higher than usual wind reports, we're around 50% for our total for this year. So I guess we're on pace since we're about halfway through the year. With our scattered storms in the forecast for the next couple of days, we're most likely to add to these totals. For KELOLAND Weather, I'm meteorologist Scott Munt.
And if you'd like to watch more after Inside the Newsroom at 1:30 today on KELOLAND Plus, you can watch Whether or Not with meteorologist Scott Munt. I'm sure he's going to go through more of what we just saw with the severe weather outlook and also give you more about our forecast for today and the rest of the week as we're going into a very hot day today. And then maybe expecting to cool down later. But if you want that severe outlook, meteorologist Scott Munt will have that up next for Whether or Not, only on KELOLAND Plus. Thanks for watching Inside the Newsroom today, and until next time, have a great day, everyone.